Um, let's just put a little interface to this before we read the scriptures. Jacob's exile comes to a close, but he cannot go home without first settling accounts with his brother. 20 years have lapsed since the frightened young man deceived Esau. 20 years have changed him greatly, and they have changed Esau too. The time has come to face the past, and in so doing, to secure the future. So that's what we're going to be reading about in the scriptures tonight. So it's chapter 32. And Jacob also went on his journey, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's host." So he called the name of that place Mahanaim. Now, all this is basically is this is the place where he's supposed to stop and get ready to see his brother Esau. But remember, he was guided to do this. The whole spiritual journey, he's guided by God. And Jacob sent messages before him to Esau, his brother, to the land of Seir, the country of Edom. And he commanded them, saying, "Thus shall you speak to my lord Esau. Thus says your servant Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed there until now. I have oxen, asses, flocks, men servants, and maidservants. And I have sent to tell my lord that I may find mercy in your sight." And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, "We came to your brother Esau, and behold, he also is coming to meet you, and 400 men with him." Then Jacob was afraid and greatly distressed. And he divided the people that were with him and the flocks and herds and camels into two groups. And Jacob said, "If my brother Esau should come against one group and destroy it, then the group which is left shall escape." So remember, Jacob went to sojourn with Laban in the first place 20 years ago because Esau had threatened to kill him over Jacob deceiving Isaac and getting his blessing. So Jacob, he's on his way to try and reconcile with his brother, but he's still real fearful about it.
Mm-hmm.
So what does he do? And what do we do, or what should we do when we fear something and we're afraid? Jacob prays. And Jacob prayed and said, "O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, the Lord who did say to me, 'Return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will deal well with you.' I am not worthy of the least of all thy favors and of all the truth that thou hast shown to thy servant. For alone with my staff I crossed over this Jordan, and now I have become two companies. Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hands of my brother Esau, for I am afraid of him, lest he will come to smite me and the mothers with their children. And thou didst say, I will surely do you good and make your descendants numerous as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude." Okay, now that is his prayer. Okay. And he spent that night there and took of that which he had with him as a present for his brother Esau, 200 she-goats and 20 he-goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams. 30 milch camels with their colts, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses and 10 fowls. And he entrusted them to his servants, every drove by itself, and said to his servants, pass over before me and keep a distance between drove and drove. So he's planning very carefully because he still doesn't know if Esau is going to reconcile with him or if he's coming to get him.
Mm-hmm.
And he commanded the leader of the first drove and said to him, when Esau, my brother, meets you and asks you, saying, who are you and where are you going? And whose are these that are before you? Then you shall say to him, they belong to your servant Jacob. They are a present which he has sent to my lord Esau. And behold, also he is coming behind us. And so he commanded the second and the third and all who followed with the droves, saying, in this manner you shall speak to Esau when you find him. Now notice one thing here. Jacob, okay, remember the deception and the blessing of the father. Esau was to be, Esau was the older, but he was to be the servant of Jacob. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But notice here, Jacob is being humble and he is calling, he is saying that Jacob said that he was Esau's servant. He's being very humble and
Mm-hmm.
and calling Esau my lord. Okay. And you shall say to him, moreover, behold, your servant Jacob also is behind us. For he said, I may appease him with the present that goes before me. And afterward, I will see his face, and perhaps he will accept me. So the present went over before him, and he himself lodged that night in the encampment. And he rose up in the night and took his 2 wives and his 2 maidservants and his 11 sons and led them to the desert of Jabbok. And he took them and brought them over the brook, and then he brought across everything that he had. Now we're going to get to a dream. So I thought we would review here. One of these are 2 of the 7 keys, and mysticism, of course, is merely God communicating with humankind through dreams, visions, thoughts, just well, mystically, let's just use that word. Okay, and so and here Jacob is having a dream, and so we have to remember dreams are relayed through symbols. When very rarely when you have a dream, or when they had dreams, very rarely would there be, it'd be like real life, like, you know, and you would see real things and real people. It's always through symbols. So we need to keep this in mind when we read this, because this is a little tough, but I think we got it. I think I got it. So, all right. So Jacob's dream. And Jacob was left alone, and there a man wrestled with him until daybreak. Now, this is a dream. Keep in mind, this is a dream. And when the man saw that he did not prevail against them, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint as he wrestled with him. Now, as we read this and read on, the man, this is a dream, the man that Jacob was actually wrestling with in the dream is Esau, because remember, he was very very concerned and very stressed over whether Esau was going to come and attack him, or whether he would be. So as he was sitting there by himself, this is the dream that came to him, the message. Okay. And the man said to him, "Let me go, for day is breaking." And he said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." And he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." And he said to him, "Your name shall no more be called Jacob, but Israel." And Israel means the Prince of God. "For you have proved your strength, wrestling with an angel and with man, and have prevailed." And Jacob asked him, and like I say, you got to keep this in mind, that this is a dream. And Jacob asked him and said, "Tell me your name." And he said, "Why is it that you ask my name?" And the angel blessed him there. And essentially, well, I have some direct reading paragraphs so that we can understand this. But I wanted to bring up one thing, because the way it's translated here, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint as he wrestled with him. Okay. Just an interesting, the Torah clears this up a little bit. He wrenched Jacob's hip at the socket, so that the socket of his hip was strained as he wrestled. Okay.
Mhm.
Now let's look at this, knowing that the man was Esau. This was his dream. The news that Esau, Jacob's twin brother, was on his way to meet him, accompanied by 400 men, had caused Jacob considerable anxiety and fear. He could not tell how Esau would react when they encountered each other. Therefore, Jacob kept pondering his past, such as the ways in which he had stolen the blessings from his brother. So that evening, Jacob had a night vision, that's a dream, a night vision, in which he wrestled not with an angel, but with a man. That is, the wrestling was between Jacob and his brother Esau in a dream. And of course, the man Esau in a dream could be an angel. I mean, because this is a dream. Hold on just a sec. Okay. So now Esau, by this time, remember, 20 years have passed. Esau was a noble man and had not done any wrong to Jacob. He had put the shortcomings and double dealings of his brother out of his mind. He let go of the hurtful past. In other words, Esau was like an angel. When Esau declined to accept Jacob's present, the latter said to him, "Because now I have seen your face as I saw the face of an angel, and you were pleased with me." So that's that dream, a little complicated, but it makes sense, because Jacob was really stressed out over this. Okay, now, all right, just some more narratives so that we can make sure this is clear. According to the biblical narrative, before Jacob had seen his brother Esau, he was worried and restless. He had spent most of the night by the brook Jabbok in prayer and supplication. As Jacob fell asleep and began dreaming, he saw himself wrestling with an angel, and the contest, continued all night till dawn. The entire dream was symbolic the angel with whom Jacob was wrestling was his brother Esau. Through this night vision, the Lord had answered Jacob's prayers and revealed the matter to him. Esau had been bitter and hostile toward Jacob, but now he had made his mind up to attempt a reconciliation with his brother and to welcome him. After all, they were twins. So, angel in Aramaic means God's counsel. And I think we've talked about this before. An angel, when they talk about an angel, it's not really a white-winged creature and whatnot necessarily, and it can come in many forms. An angel could be a minister. It could be one of us, whatever. So, but it means God's counsel, and God's counsel is carried by angels. It also means someone who is innocent and good. In the Near East, innocent and pious men are often referred to as angels. Esau was innocent like an angel. So we have Jacob, who has humbled himself, and Esau, who has just given up the idea of given up the resentment, whatever was there, and so he was innocent and pious after 20 years. Okay, and Jacob called the name of that place Peniel, for he said, I have seen an angel face to face, and my life is preserved. The sun rose upon him just as he left Peniel, and he limped because of his thigh. Now, let's talk about that, because if this was a dream, why was he limping? Now, the way that is explained is, okay, have you ever had a dream when it might even be like something that somebody or something gave you a headache or whatnot, and when you woke up, you had that headache, even though it wasn't there when you went to sleep, but physical phenomena can carry over from a dream. Now that's the way they explain that, and the idea that the idea that he limped, of course, is part of the humility, the humbleness. But interesting. Okay. That is why the children of Israel do not eat of the sinew of the hip, which is on the hollow of the thigh to this day, because the angel touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh on the sinew of the thigh. So we couldn't leave this thing alone. And so remember the Jewish Torah said it was like the hip socket and whatnot. But the sinew that they're talking about is the sciatic nerve. However, I think I spelled that wrong, but it's the sciatic nerve. Okay, and that is the part that may not be eaten. And so for kosher, okay, Jews that maintain kosher, you will never see them eating the meat that comes from the hind quarter. And I'm not sure what that is. If anybody you know about meat and steaks, you could say so. But they may not, because unless they have been processed by a kosher butcher, and what the butcher does somehow is cut that nerve out, and then they can eat it. I just thought we'd put that in there because I thought that was cool. And I guess if you have any Jewish friends and you ask them, they will tell you that. Okay. Now, we're not going to read Well, let's go over this. Okay. Now, the reconciliation between Esau and Jacob, this is again his spirituality, occurs because it is Israel, Prince of God, not Jacob, whom Esau meets. In other words, Jacob has been transformed over the 20 years, and his name was changed to Israel. But the old Jacob would not have reconciled with Esau, but the new Israel reconciles with Esau. Jacob is a new man who asks for forgiveness, if not in words, then in manner, who limps toward him with repentant air and not deceitful arrogance. He is not a man to be put to the sword. He is a man who can be loved as a brother. The brothers are at peace, and there is no further need to flee from Esau's wrath. Now, okay. Now I'm just going to we're not going to read chapter 33. You can read it on your own, because it's just it's a description of the wives meeting Esau and things like that. You can read that on your own. It's not real long, but it's just not significant enough to take up time here. Oops, okay. So Jacob and Esau are reconciled. Read the rest in chapter 33. Next week, we're going to do chapter 34.